All right, so we're actually going to finish up this unit with section 5.4. Trigonometric functions of real numbers and periodic functions. So the first part, to be honest, we've already kind of done this. As long as you understand coordinates, remember your x coordinate is cosine and your y coordinate is sine. So this is asking you for the value of the trigonometric functions. That means they want all of them. So we know sine of t is 1/2, which means we also know cosecant of t is 1/1/2, or just flip it 2. We know cosine of t is square root of 3/2, which means we know secant of t, just flip it, 2/square root of 3/2, or square root of 3. Now here we do have to rationalize, so we're going to multiply top and bottom by √3. So we've got 2√3/3. So there's that one. So far we've got 4, and not, minimal work. Very minimal work. Tangent, you gotta try for a minute. Tangent is sine over cosine. So it should be sine over cosine. We're gonna, instead of dividing, we're gonna multiply by the reciprocal. So we're gonna have keep, change to multiplication, and flip. So here you get 1/√3. Now, before I rationalize, I usually go ahead and write cotangent, just while you're at it. So cotangent of t is, instead of 1/√3, is √3/1. So that one's done. Now this one we just have to go back and rationalize. So we're going to multiply by √3/√3, and we wind up getting square root of 3/3. And then we have all 6. Moving on, this one's actually way easier because they're talking about pi. So pi, your coordinates are -1, 0, which is your cosine and your sine again. So sine of pi is 0, which means the cosecant, now you gotta think, why did I write theta? You gotta think for a minute on this one. So remember, cosecant is 1/sine. So the cosecant of pi is 1/0, which is undefined. Okay, undefined. Cosine is -1, which means secant of pi is 1/-1, which is still -1. So we've got 4 so far. We just need tangent and cotangent. So tangent of pi, remember tangent is sine over cosine, so 0/-1 is still 0. And cotangent, of pi, cotangent of pi is cosine over sine. All right, we want to flip it, and that will be undefined. All right, so it's not too crazy, finding the different things, especially if they give you the sine and the cosine. Just takes a little bit of reciprocals. This talks about the actual domain and range. Understand you can take the sine and cosine of anything. So your domain, your x values, is all real numbers, right? -infinity to +infinity, all real numbers. But your range, think about the values you get out. It's basically, it tucks you in between 1 and -1. So you can go as low as -1, you can go as high as +1. And all those values in between, the √2/2, the √3/2, the 1/2, all in between those two numbers. And yes, you can equal -1 and you can equal +1. Even in odd functions, I don't think they're super important, but we'll talk about them. Basically, even in odd functions, it's handy to save you a little bit of time. So if I ask you, what's the cosine of -30? Well, it should be the same as the cosine of 30. So you know it's going to be positive. You don't have to think, all students take calc, which quadrant am I in? You know that it's going to be the same as the cosine of +30. Secant of, again, -30 is going to be the same as secant of 30. And the reason why it makes sense, think about it. If you're down here, okay, in the fourth quadrant, so let's say -30, -30. All students take calc. Down here, cosine and secant are positive. So it makes sense that my answer is going to be positive. And it's the equivalent, so you can just kind of automatically put it back in quadrant 1. All right, you know that it's going to be positive. You know that it's the same as whatever cosine of 30 was. All the rest of them are odd, okay, which means if you have the sine of -60, then it's the opposite of the sine of 60. So if the sine of 60 is square root of 3 over 2, then the sine of -60 would be negative square root of 3 over 2. Okay. If you know your quadrants, you really shouldn't need this stuff. Okay. But let's try some. So cosine of -60 is the same as cosine of 60. Right? So we automatically know we're in quadrant 1. So let's use our reference. We're going to use our hand trick. And we're going to make our first quadrant. We're going to fold down our 60-degree finger. Remember, cosine's up top. So I got 1/2. And we know it's positive because it's in the first quadrant now. Again, you could have still done it the way we did it yesterday and said -60 is down here, my reference angle is 60, cosine's positive. Still get you the same thing. Tangent of -π/6 is the same as the opposite of whatever the tangent of π/6 is. So let's think about what the tangent of π/6 is. Tangent of π/6, let's use our hand trick. We know it's sine over cosine. So we know it's π/6. Sine is 1/2. Cosine is √3/2. So we're going to do a keep change flip. All right, multiply by the reciprocal. So we have 1/√3, and we're going to go ahead and rationalize √3/√3. So we get √3/3. So we know that the tangent of -π/6 is the opposite of the tangent of π/6. So the tangent of π/6 is √3/3. Our answer would be -√3/3. Again, we kind of did all this yesterday, so you can always go back to what we did yesterday as well. Cosine of 405, we're going to still use coterminal here, get it back on the unit circle. So we're going to say 405 minus 360. And we get 45 degrees, which puts us right back in quadrant 1. So all we need is, we're in quadrant 1, we know everything's positive. So the cosine of 405 would be the same as the cosine of 45. Cosine of 45 is root 2 over 2. Again, we got that from our hand trick. Put down the middle finger. Cosine is up top. Root 2 over 2. Next one. 7 pi over 3. Let's find the coterminal angle. So we're going to, over here we subtracted 360 because it was in degrees. Here we're going to subtract 2 pi because it's in radians. So 6 pi over 3 is 2 pi. So we get pi over 3, which again, pi over 3 is in the first quadrant. So we lucked out here. So all we need to do is find the sine of pi over 3 and we're done. Because we're in the first quadrant, everything's positive. Alright, so pi over 3 is going to be square root of 3 over 2. Again, I'm looking at my hand right now. And we know it's positive, it's in the first quadrant, so we're done. Alright, that's it for today, guys. I will tell you, there is a word problem, question 43 in your homework. Understand if you use the calculator that I attached, you can type that whole function in. Now, I will tell you to be super aware of whether you're talking in terms of radians or degrees. So if you start seeing some pies, or if you don't see those degree symbols, you are working in terms of radians, so be careful with your calculator. But it's easy to type in once you understand how to type it in and all that good stuff. But I did want you to try an actual word problem. Again, pay attention to if it's in degrees or radians. And you can use the calculator to type in that whole deal. All right? Tell me if you have any issues. Bye, guys.